Control Capture One with a Behringer X-touch Mini. Hello friends from the internet. Welcome to jamiljiral. I am Jamil Silva, and in today's episode I'm going to show you how to control Capture One with a Behringer X-touch Mini. Many people have already used this MIDI controller with Lightroom, and who use it know that this device makes the editing process much easier. I don't use Lightroom anymore to edit my photos, but when I was using it, I was also using it with this MIDI controller, and I can say that editing pictures was more practical and faster than using only the mouse to slide controls. I really miss this kind of MIDI controller with Capture One. There are a few devices made specially for Capture One, but they are very expensive. This X-touch Mini is way cheaper and easy to find. Limitations. To begin with, I would like to say that there are a few limitations in using the device to control the editing tools in Capture One. You will be able to control only the tools that are included within a shortcut list. Any tool that you can assign a shortcut will be controlled by the X-touch Mini. Even the brush, if you want to change its size, hardness, opacity, and flow. In order to see a list of all tools that you can assign to the device, go to Edit, Edit Keyboard Shortcuts, and Other. When comparing the controller with Capture One in Lightroom, things are a little different. In Lightroom, you can control almost all of its functions. At least, when I was using Lightroom, I was able to control every function in the editing section with the X-touch Mini. This doesn't happen with Capture One. But this limitation in using every function is not so bad. The editing process in Capture One is way more efficient than in Lightroom, and this is the main reason why I don't use Lightroom anymore. In Capture One, I synchronize my pictures according to the same lighting conditions, and after everything is over, I review all my editing synchronization to make slightly changes using the tools controlled by the X-touch Mini. This way, using a MIDI controller becomes more practical because I will use knobs and buttons instead of using my mouse to slide the editing tools. Software used. You need a program to control Capture One with the X-touch Mini. The software that I'm using to map the editing tools is BOM Mid Translator. In the company's website, you can download two versions of the program, Pro and Classic. The Pro version can be used both in Windows and Mac. However, it works for only 20 minutes. You can use the program as many times as you want. However, for only 20 minutes. If you don't want to purchase the software, just close it when the time is over and open it again. The classic version of this software doesn't have this time limit. It is recommended if you don't want to buy the program. However, it works only with Windows. Sorry, Mac users. The classic version is more limited than the Pro version, but it works perfectly to control the editing tools in Capture One with the X-touch Mini. So, if you use Windows and you don't want to buy the program, I will suggest the classic version. Using the software. Using the program is very simple. However, you really need to pay attention when you are adding the commands to it. This is the boring part of the job because you will need to pay a lot of attention in order to avoid mistakes. Go to MIDI In and choose your controller. If the name of your controller is not listed in here, maybe it is not compatible. However, the software can recognize a lot of models. After that, go to MIDI Out and click the name of your MIDI controller. There are two editing blocks. The left block is for creating presets. The right block is for creating actions for the presets. Click the left plus sign to create a preset and name it Capture 1, because this preset will be used to control Capture 1. It is important to say that you can also use the software to control other programs or games in order to minimize complex or repetitive actions in your computer. Click the right plus sign to create an action. Name it Exposure App because it will be used as an example to increase the exposure of a photo. Click the right plus sign again to create another action and name it Exposure Down. It will be used to reduce a photo's exposure. Up in the action field, we have Name to represent the name of the action, Incoming Trigger to represent a knob of the X-touch Mini, Outgoing Action to represent the shortcut that will change an editing tool in Capture One. Double-click Exposure App to edit an action. Options is where you can find the name of the action and you can also see if it is active or not. Incoming will register the movement of one of the chosen knobs. You click Capture MIDI and move a knob in the device. Outgoing will receive a shortcut from Capture One. Click the drop-down menu and choose Keystroke Emulation. Click inside of the Key Press or Sequence box and type the corresponding shortcut. When it is all done, click Apply so that the software can record and accept the commands. Mapping the program. Before digging in deep into the mapping of the program, I strongly suggest you planning ahead the whole process to avoid losing all of your work in case you decide something different later. I suggest listing what you want to map. In my case, I'm going to map the following editing tools. As you can see, there are 11 tools. If I use one knob or button to control each tool, for example, the same knob will increase or decrease exposure. So it means that I will need 11 knobs total in X-touch Mini. On the other hand, if I use two knobs, one to increase and the other to decrease exposure, for example, then I will need 22 knobs. Write down your shortcuts. As soon as you start typing your shortcuts, I suggest writing them down in a safe place because you may need them later. You may want to use them in another computer, or even Capture One can receive a massive update and change some of the shortcuts. You never know. Better safe than sorry. Create a shortcut list only for the X-touch Mini in Capture One. I suggest you create a list of shortcuts in Capture One only for this device so that you avoid messing around with the standard shortcuts or to mess around with some of the other lists you may already have. In order to create a specific shortcut list for the X-touch, go to Edit, Edit Keyboard Shortcuts, click the plus sign, name it X-touch, for example, and click OK. Save a workspace for the X-touch. Another suggestion is to create a specific workspace for the X-touch. If you save a workspace in the same order of the knobs you are going to map in the device, it will be easier for you to remember which button changes what. As you have already taken notes of what editing tools you want to control in Capture One, organize the workspace in the same order that you will use in the X-touch Mini. Let all the editing tools you want open and clean out the ones you don't need. As soon as you finish, go to Windows, Workspace, Save Workspace, name your workspace, and choose Save. Don't you worry about this procedure. You can change this workspace later because as soon as you start using the device with Capture One, you will want to adjust some of the tools, add tools, change order, and because of that, you will have to rearrange the workspace to improve your experience in controlling Capture One with the X-touch Mini. In order to replace your workspace, go to Windows, Workspace, Save Workspace. Click the drop-down menu and choose the name of the workspace used with the X-touch Mini that you previously saved. Click Save and Yes to replace it. Before mapping. Before mapping the MIDI controller, you have to decide if you are going to use one or two knobs to control each editing tool in Capture One, and I'm gonna show you why. Using the same knob. Example, you use the same knob to one direction to increase exposure, and then you move the same knob to another direction to reduce exposure. When you use the same knob, the device needs to reach its limit in order to make any changes in any direction. I don't think this is very practical because when you need to make slightly adjustments, we'll have to move the knob to its maximum limit, and in order to make another opposite slightly adjustments again, we'll have to move the knob to the other maximum limit. When you increase exposure, for example, and you need to slightly reduce it, you will have to move all around back until the knob reaches its limit, and to be honest with you, for small up and down adjustments, you will have to move the knob around quite a lot. If you don't want to keep moving and moving your knob for small adjustments like that, I suggest the following two options. Option 1. Use the same knob to increase or reduce exposure, for example. As you can also press the knob, you can move it to one side to either increase or reduce exposure, for example, and then press the same knob to either increase or reduce it. This is a very practical way to control the knobs, and it will also save you the number of knobs that you will have to use in the device in order to control the editing tools in Capture One. Option 2. Use two knobs. One will increase exposure, for example, and the other will reduce it. This option is also very valid, but it will need a lot of knobs. That is why when I listed the editing tools to be mapped, I told you that you could use double the number of your tools. In my case, I have listed 11 tools, then I would use 22 knobs, in case I choose the second option. As the device has a lot of knobs, considering that you can use both layer A and layer B, maybe you can choose two knobs for just one tool. Sometimes I prefer this option because the click on this device is rather noisy, but test it and make up your mind. Mapping the X-touch Mini. Now it is the moment you've been waiting for. Let's insert the commands in the program. Of course, I'm going to do it with just one command and one knob because this procedure is very time-consuming. If you want, you can ask me to make another video showing you all of my shortcuts and the way I mapped my device. When you start mapping your device, I suggest you to follow this order. Record the knob movement in the X-touch Mini. Type the shortcut. test the command in Capture One. I will use the option 1, the same button with a click. Double-click Exposure App. In Incoming, click the option to record the button movement in the device. I will move the knob until it reaches the number 127. The opposite direction would have to reach the number 0. In Outgoing, click the drop-down menu and choose Keystroke Emulation. Click the box and type the shortcut you have chosen to increase exposure. Click Apply for the software record the command. Go to Capture One and move the knob until it reaches its limit and see if exposure will increase. If it works, go back to the software and click Close. If it doesn't work, you must have used a different knob or a different shortcut. Repeat the procedure. With more complex shortcuts, it is not difficult for that to happen. When you retype the shortcut in Outcoming, the problem is usually solved. That is why it is extremely important to test each command one by one every time you type it. Double-click Exposure Down. In Incoming, click the option Capture MIDI and press a few times in the knob. As for me, one press was not enough. When I pressed the knob just once when I was writing in the software, I had to press the knob twice to make one small change in the exposure, for example, while I was editing a picture. If you press more than twice in the software during the mapping process, you will have to press just once to make a small change in the exposure in this example. In Outcoming, click the drop-down menu and choose Keystroke Emulation. Click inside the box and press the shortcut in your keyboard to reduce exposure. Click Apply. Go to Capture One and press a few times to see if the exposure is being reduced. Now, test both commands by moving the knob and pressing it to see if you can increase and reduce exposure using the same knob, and to test if both commands are working properly. If everything is working fine, you can rest assured that you have typed the correct commands in both the software and Capture One. Now, keep doing the same procedure in order to map all the editing tools that you want. And don't forget to save your work. Is it worth using the controller? The important question of the day is it worthwhile using a controller with Capture One? This is a very personal answer. Well, to start with, I can say that we already have a mouse, a keyboard, and an editing tablet such as a Wacom tablet. This controller would add up another device on your table. Besides that, you can program the Wacom tablet with many shortcuts in the same way. The only problem is that the tablet is limited in number of buttons. However, if space is not a problem for you, this device is quite interesting to adjust the editing tools the way I have been doing. I mean, when I am reviewing my pictures and I need to make final small adjustments in some of the tools in Capture One. The price is, of course, another decisive factor in using any device to control Capture One. If I'm going to spend a lot of money, I may choose not. There is another device to control Capture One that is very expensive. I wouldn't buy it because of the price. I would have to be editing tons of pictures in a short period of time to justify this purchase. But again, maybe a synchronization would fit this necessity quite well, because once you have to edit tons of pictures in a short period of time, you may as well synchronize them all to save up time. I repeat myself by saying that Capture One is a program that simplifies the editing process enormously, and this doesn't happen in Lightroom. For Lightroom, maybe a device like that would be better served, but again, depending on the price. As for this X-touch Mini, as it is a small device and it is not that expensive, I believe that I can recommend it to control Capture One. It makes my final editing process much faster and practical. In the end, it is easier to use a knob than the mouse to slide controls. Tell us how your experience with the MIDI controller and Capture One is. Do you use any? Did you try to do what I said in this video? Did it work? Do you think it is worthwhile using it? Your feedback will help the community a lot. And if you like this video, don't forget to help the channel. Subscribe, share and like the video. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video. Bye!